How's it going, guys, and welcome to this video where I share my top 5 tips for your first day in a mountain bike park. If you've been putting off your first visit to a mountain bike park because of nerves or just being afraid to make a fool of yourself in the bike park, then these tips are definitely for you and will definitely help you get the most out of your first day in a bike park. So if you want to get to know me, share my rides, see me review a load of cool equipment and get all of my tips and tricks, then don't forget to go ahead and subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell down underneath there as well so as you don't miss a thing. So I'm sure there's a ton of you out there that never actually head to a bike park for fear of not being good enough to be in a bike park or for fear of making a fool of yourself in front of other people. And it just makes me sad to think that people are missing out on this absolutely amazing experience to be had on a mountain bike. But I can promise you that when you go to these places, it's not all people, everyone there is not whipping over jumps, hitting massive gaps and just shredding it up like a superstar. A lot of people will be in the same boat as you if you're heading there for your first time. They're just riding within their own comfort zone and trying to progress as quickly as they can so as they can get the absolute most out of their bike park day. You won't look like a fool if you're taking the chicken lines around jumps and, riding blues and stuff like that. Loads of people are in the same boat as you and mountain bikers are just real cool people. It's not like a lot of other sports where you can feel like a little bit of an idiot. People seem to enjoy making beginners feel like idiots. That's not the case in mountain biking. That said, there are some great ways to avoid silly mistakes and maximise your fun on your first day in a bike park. And with these 5 tips and the extra bonus tip, which is probably the most important one that I'll put at the end, you'll be absolutely fine and you'll get the absolute most out of your bike park day experience. So let's jump into the tips. So tip number 1 is how to store your lift pass for the day. Now, this sounds really ridiculous, and actually before I go into it, this is specific to ski resort type bike parks, so Whistler, Val Nord, most of the bike parks that are in the Alps that are ski resorts in the off season or in the peak season for skiing, they normally have a lift pass system. So while it sounds very simple and basic, smooth transitions through gates to the chairlifts and to the gondolas and stuff like that can make your whole bike park day experience much less stressful, much more enjoyable, because it just takes this little detail and makes it so much simpler from the get-go on your first day in a bike park. Your lift pass looks like this. This is a credit card sized, piece of plastic. This is my lift pass from Val Nord, and basically gates in bike parks that are, like I say, are ski resorts as well. You use this pass and kind of scan it across a sensor that will then open the gate for you and let you through. Now, obviously you don't want to lose this little bad boy because this is what's going to get you through all the gates for the rest of the day in the bike park, but at the same time you don't want to store it somewhere like in a zip pocket in your backpack or anywhere that it's going to involve difficulty in you getting out of your pockets or whatever. It sounds absolutely ridiculous, this one, I know, but you've got to think of yourself in a bike park in a full face helmet, full armour, rummaging around in your backpack. If you've got a backpack off, you're going to be taking your pack off, rummaging through it to find this, to scan yourself through. You've then, after you've got your pack off, you've then got to shuffle through with your bike before the gate closes again. So this is actually a really important little tip. So the sensors on the gates in bike parks can be anywhere really from kind of waist height up to kind of shoulder height. If I remember rightly, in Val Nord, the gate sensors were quite high up, whereas in the Sierra Nevada, my local bike park, they were right down at waist height, which makes it a lot easier. And what you basically want to do is before you start riding, have a look at the gates before you go through and make a judgment call on where you want to store your card. And the idea is that you want to have your card stored in an item of clothing so as you can just, without taking it out, just sort of thrust your hip towards it if you've got it in a zipped pocket on your shorts, or lift your thigh up if you've got like combat style pockets on your shorts so as you can run it past the sensor. But you need to make a judgment call on where's best to store it. Places that I recommend for your waist height ones, if you have got like your normal pocket in your shorts but like a zippable one, then you want to store it in there so as you can just kind of scan it as you go past. If you haven't got those and you've got the combat style zip pockets, and stick it in there and just lift your leg up to scan it. And just lift your leg up to scan it. That works really, really well. And then for sensors that are at shoulder height, I've actually had quite a good idea about that. I'm sure loads of people do it, but I've got my new POC riding glove on there. And what you can do is, if you find it comfortable enough, is you can, because it's nice and flexible, you can stuff your lift pass up inside that glove. Make sure it's done up nice and tight, and then that's nice for riding still. And then because it's at kind of shoulder height, I can just wave that in front of the sensor and push the bike on through. So that's a really good little tip, that one. So make sure you do think about this before you start your uplifts, because it's a really, really useful little tip. I've got one little tip as well for if you're at a place like BikePark Wales. This is especially prudent if you record your rides. What you get in those kind of bike parks is you get like a strip of paper with 2 sticky ends on it, kind of like the luggage tags that they stick on your baggage when you fly through an airport. And basically what you don't want to do is like I did in this clip, where you can see I've just stuck it on really loosely like you do around the handle of a suitcase or hold all or whatever. What the guys that have been there before did is they wrapped it around their handlebar a load of times and then stuck it onto itself, and that made it nice and tight, because otherwise it's just going to be flapping around, getting on your wick, interfering with your audio if you're recording. It's just annoying. So that's just a little tip for uplifts when you're uplifted in a van like BikePark Wales. And that takes us on to tip number 2, which is to keep your pack on the chairlifts. Now this again sounds really ridiculous, but it's another one that I didn't really start doing until I clocked someone else doing it on the same day as I was in the bike park. I just happened to uplift behind someone that did this, and I was, up until this point, I carry a backpack when I'm in bike parks, and because I like to carry water and spares, but that can be a bit of a pain in the arse. If you're putting your bike on the chairlift, you then have to run around the chairlift while taking your bag off to sit down so as your bag isn't in the way. And I saw a geezer up ahead of me do this thing where he just kind of went side saddle. So what you kind of do is you stick your bike in, you run around without taking your back off, and generally most people like to ride chairlifts by themselves. So there's always loads of room. Get a chairlift to yourself, and what you do is you just sit down, hook one leg up, and kind of sit like you're on your couch at home. Put your arm up on the back of the chair, and you just kind of lean against it with your side, so as your pack is shooting out towards the other side, and it just stops your pack from getting in the way and means that you can ride a chairlift without taking your pack off. And that takes us on to tip number 3, which is really important now. So you've ridden the chairlift up the top, and you're up the top ready for your first run. And this tip is basically just to take it really easy on your first run. Pick a nice blue and take it nice and easy. A mountain biker on his first day in a bike park is full of nervous adrenaline, and someone that's full of nerves and adrenaline is not making good decisions and probably isn't riding a mountain bike very well at all, because you'll be shaky and all that kind of stuff. You really just need to focus on getting to the bottom of your first drop in one piece. Try and work out that adrenaline, try and work out that nerves, and just settle into the day. Many a rider have rocked up at a bike park, hit the first one really hard, full of adrenaline, full of beans, really nervous at the same time, and just wiped out. And the trouble is that can really ruin your first day in a bike park. If you've travelled for like a really long time to get to the bike park, or you've got a full day planned in the bike park, a fall on your first run, you can either damage the bike, which can cost you time, you can damage the bike kind of irreparably on the mountain in that day and have to rent a bike, which can cost you anywhere up to 100 quid, or you could obviously hurt yourself, which is the worst case scenario, and completely write off the rest of the day. So this is really important, this one. A good example of this actually is this little clip here. If I show you now, this is my first run on, I think this was actually my second day in Sierra Nevada Bike Park, but this was about 2 minutes into my first run. That crash wasn't a bad one. I didn't hurt myself or anything like that, but I did put quite a nasty rip in the sidewall of my tyre, which I couldn't repair up on the mountain. I had to then push my bike all the way down because I had just passed a really steep section, so I couldn't push back up and ride the chairlift back down. I had like a good 15-minute push down this hill because it was another sort of 4 minutes of descending, something like that. So it took me a long time to get down to the top of the gondola at Sierra Nevada Bike Park. I then had to take the gondola down. The guys in the shop had to replace the tyre altogether while I went off and got something to drink. I came back, got back to the top, and basically my first proper run didn't happen until like 11:30, 12 o'clock. So I lost like almost 2 hours in the bike park that day, all because I hit the first run like a bit of an idiot, tried to get up that wall before I'd warmed up or anything like that, and it just had, in my case, not terrible consequences, but still cost me a few hours in a bike park, which is not good. It can be much worse than that. So just make sure you take that first run nice and easy and just settle into the day. That takes us on to tip number 4, which is to hit the reds first. This is really important. Now that I've ridden a few bike parks, this is my kind of golden rule for bike park days, is to get on the reds as soon as you can. So if you're like a relatively experienced trail rider, you're going to be absolutely fine on the reds. So you just get that first run out of the way where you're just warming up on a blue or something like that. get straight on the reds, because and this is for a number of reasons. One, because the reds are just more fun. They're faster, they take a more direct route down the mountain, they've got more features, they're just much more fun than a blue run. In addition to that, actually, they take a lot less time because you're taking such a direct line. They're much shorter, just much faster, much shorter, much punchier. And in contrast to the blues, which obviously take a much less direct line down the mountain, they don't fatigue you too much. A real long sweeping blue, the blues aren't so steep, but because they're so long and much straighter with big switchbacks and stuff, you can pick up much more speed. It's still a really fast trail a lot of the time, the blue trails, and because they last so much longer, they just fatigue you a lot quicker. Arm pump, you get you get really bad arm pump on blue runs that sweep back and forth across, just traversing across the mountain while slowly descending. They can be an absolute wrecker of arms. So it's a really good suggestion to, if you're comfortable, get on the reds as quick as you can. They won't be as hard as you think they are. They'll be much more fun than the blues, and it'll just set you up for lasting out the day a lot longer. And then you can save some of these really long, sweeping, fun blues, because they can be fun as well for later on in the day if you've still got enough fuel in the tank. Tip number 5 is to push yourself on and really try and hit some features really early on in the day. Speed, berms, jumps, gaps, drops. These are the things, these are the reasons that we go to a bike park. This, you can get everything else on a trail. You go to a bike park to hit features and ride fast. And while if you cut yourself some slack like I did in my first couple of days in a bike park and build up to features, it doesn't matter what time in the day you hit your first drop or your first jump or whatever. It's really, really, really satisfying. There's no two ways about that. Yes, Kevin! But what will happen is if you do what I did and you hit your first drop at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon on your last drop of the day, it gives you a real good sense of achievement then. But when you get to the car afterwards, you realise that the drop was nowhere near as bad as you thought it was going to be. And if you just hit that drop earlier on in the day, it would have pushed your riding on a lot quicker in the day, and you would have just got the absolute most out of the bike park in the full day that you had there as you possibly could have got, because you'd have been hitting a lot more of the features. So it's really, really important that you just try your hardest to start hitting drops and gaps and jumps and whatever as quickly as you can in the day. It's much easier said than done as it happens, but totally worth it. If you can hit a drop, even some drops and jumps in the first half of the day, it sets you up for the second half of the day so much better. If you've only got that one day in a bike park, then on your first day you've got that full day in the bike park, and then you're travelling home the next day or whatever. It means these first days in a bike park are a real balancing act between trying to push yourself to your limit so as you get the absolute maximum enjoyment out of the day as you possibly can, whilst not pushing yourself so hard that you burn out really early or hurt yourself or damage your bike and ruin your day. It's a real balancing act, and fatigue is a really big one actually, and it takes me on to the bonus tip, which is probably the most important of the lot, and that is to not take it easy, but don't hit every single descent that you do like a downhill race. I've ridden bike parks a lot this year now, and through watching the riders in the bike parks and talking to them even, I've noticed that there's 3 types of riders generally in a bike park. The first are the over-eager beginners that are in the bike park for the whole day. You can tell these guys because generally by about lunchtime they're sat complaining about how much their arms are wrecking from arm pump, and they're generally all packed in and done for the day by like 2 o'clock. That's your over-eager beginners. They're there every time and they're classic. The second is the experienced all-dayer. You'll see these guys because they'll be riding super smooth, they won't be hitting everything at top speed, they'll be looking for air and style off jumps and stuff like that, and they'll just be riding the bike park in a much more controlled manner. When they hit their favourite trails or their favourite parts of trails, they open it up and go like stink. You can really see these guys know what they're doing, and the reason that they're doing it is because they know they're in the park for the whole day, and they know that they can't do every descent like it's a downhill race, so they really control the way that they ride, and it really shows in the way that they ride for the whole day. And then the third are the experienced riders again, but the people that are just in for a few descents. These guys just rock up, pin it for an hour, do as many descents as they can in the hour, and then they're gone again. They're not the guys that you want to follow their example of, but they're there doing what they need, having a real blast, ripping it for an hour and then going again. So when you're in a bike park and you're riding for 6 hours, don't underestimate how knackering that can be, and take the example like I did in the end in Val Nord. I learnt this, which stood me in good stead for the rest of my reluctant road trip that I did last year in 2017, is just take a leaf out of the experienced experienced riders who are there for the whole day. Just don't pin it every descent. Try and, think about style and lines and stuff like that, and really enjoy the riding, and just put pinning it every single descent to the back of your head, and just have a really great time. So yeah, follow those tips, I reckon, and you'll have a really epic day on your first day in a bike park. I hope you found that video useful. If you did, stick a comment below and let me know. Also, in the comments below, for the people that are going to a bike park for their first day, share any stories you might have about stacking it early and ruining the rest of your day in your bike park, injuries you might have sustained. That makes for interesting comments below. And of course, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you like this video. Hit that notification bell so as you don't miss anything. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. On your bikes.